The Earth's fury shook violently as its reactor reached the point of no return. Red warning lights bathed the bridge in an eerie glow, while alarms screamed their electronic death song. Engineer Lee Min-ho had maybe 2 minutes to prevent the ship from becoming a miniature star down in the engine room. Lee Min-ho and his team worked with desperate precision. They had one last trick to try something so dangerous that no sane engineer would attempt it, but humans had stopped being sane the moment they decided to fight impossible odds. Captain, the chief engineer, called over the intercom, "I am attempting an emergency core venting. We might survive this, but I cannot make any promises." His hands flew over the controls as he prepared to do something that violated every rule of reactor safety. The modifications that had given them incredible power were now threatening to destroy them. But Lee Min-ho understood something about human engineering that aliens never learned rules existed to be broken when survival was at stake. He opened every emergency vent and dumped the excess reactor energy directly into space through the ship's damaged hull. The Earth's fury began glowing like a star as massive amounts of power poured out of the vessel in brilliant streams of light. Instead of exploding, the ship became a beacon that could be seen across the entire star system. The vented energy created a spectacular display of colors that painted the darkness with rainbow fire. The dying vessel looked like something from a dream. Lieutenant Park So-young watched her instruments as the power levels slowly dropped from critical to merely dangerous. "We are not going to die today," she announced with amazement in her voice. The chief engineer had performed another miracle. All across the battlefield, Empire ships fled in terror. The glowing human vessel looked like an angry god rising from the depths of space. Some alien crews thought they were seeing a supernatural being. Others simply ran from something they could not understand. Admiral Crix's death had been transmitted throughout the Empire fleet along with images of the flagship's destruction. Within hours, the news would spread to every corner of the galaxy. The Empire's strongest leader had been killed by a single human ship. The few Empire vessels that had not surrendered jumped to hyperspace as fast as their engines could carry them. They would spread the story of their defeat to every alien world. The tale would grow in the telling until it became legend. Captain Kim Tae-ho felt exhaustion wash over him as the adrenaline of battle finally faded. His crew had done the impossible, but the cost had been enormous. Their ship was barely holding together, and they were far from any friendly port. Communications Officer Choi Hae-jin worked to contact the nearest human outpost. Her equipment was damaged, but the Earth's fury screamed through space toward the massive Empire flagship like a missile aimed at the heart of tyranny. Captain Kim Tae-ho stood steady on the bridge, watching the Dominion grow larger on the main screen. The alien vessel was enormous, but size would not save it. Admiral Crix felt his flagship shudder as every weapon system charged to maximum power. The Dominion had enough firepower to glass entire continents, but the approaching human ship blazed with energy readings that defied comprehension. He had never seen anything like it. "All weapons fire," Crix commanded, and the space between the ships exploded with deadly energy. The Empire flagship unleashed a barrage that could have destroyed a small moon. Hundreds of energy bolts and plasma streams converged on the tiny human vessel, but Chief Pilot Bae Seung-min was ready for this moment. He had studied the Empire's weapons for years and knew exactly how they fired. The Earth's fury twisted through the incoming death like it was dancing with destiny. Every shot missed by inches. Navigation Officer Yoon Ji-woo had calculated the perfect approach vector using skills learned from flying through Earth's dangerous storms. The human ship dove beneath the main guns and rolled around the secondary batteries. Nothing the aliens did could touch them. Weapons Officer Jang Do-hyeon waited for the perfect moment as they closed the final distance. His targeting computer locked onto the Empire flagship's most vulnerable points. The modified plasma cannons were charged with enough power to crack the planet's crust fire. "Everything we have," Captain Kim Tae-ho commanded. The Earth's fury unleashed every weapon at point-blank range. Streams of superheated plasma poured into the Dominion's hull like liquid fire from the gods. The Empire flagship's mighty shields, which had never failed in 1,000 battles, simply evaporated. Explosions rippled across the massive alien vessel as critical systems overloaded the ship's own Power reactors began failing as the human weapons punched through armor that was supposed to be invincible. Entire sections of the flagship went. Dark Admiral Crix felt his command bridge shake as his mighty vessel died around him. Bulkheads cracked, and sparks flew from damaged consoles. The artificial gravity failed, and debris floated through the air like deadly snow. What are these creatures? He whispered as his bridge crew fell unconscious or died from the impacts. His perfect flagship, the pride of the Empire, was being torn apart by weapons that should not exist. Lieutenant Park So-young watched the tactical display as the Empire flagship broke apart. The massive vessel was splitting down the middle as secondary explosions tore through its hull. 20 kilometers of alien engineering was becoming space debris. The destruction of the Dominion sent shockwaves through the entire Empire fleet. Every alien captain and crew member watched their greatest symbol of power die in flames. The flagship that had conquered 500 worlds was being destroyed by one small human ship. Communications Officer Choi Hyjin intercepted thousands of panicked transmissions as the enemy fleet fell into chaos. Some ships were requesting immediate retreat orders, others were calling for help that would never come. The perfect military machine was breaking down. Science Officer Han Yujin monitored the enemy fleet's behavior as their command structure collapsed without the flagship to coordinate them. Thousands of ships began making individual decisions. Some tried to continue fighting while others turned to flee. The Empire captains had trained their entire lives to follow orders from above. When those orders stopped coming, they did not know how to react. The species that had conquered the galaxy through organization was paralyzed by the loss of their leader. Dr. Song Yun-soo felt the ship shudder as the Omega protocol reached its limits. The reactor was about to overload and destroy them all, but they had accomplished something impossible. The Empire's greatest fleet was falling apart around them. Engineer Lee Min-ho's voice crackled over the intercom. Captain, the reactor is going critical. We have maybe 3 minutes before we become a new star. His words carried no regret, only satisfaction at a job well. Empire ships began powering down their weapons and sending surrender signals. The sight of their flagship dying had broken their will to fight. Vessels that had never retreated from battle were begging for mercy from the humans they had tried to destroy. Admiral Crix died when his bridge exploded in a final burst of plasma fire. His last thought was wonder at the species that had proven him wrong. The humans had done something no other race in galactic history had accomplished. The Dominion broke apart completely as its reactors exploded. The massive vessel that had terrorized star systems became an expanding cloud of glowing metal. 20,000 Empire personnel died with their flagship, including the admiral who had never known defeat. Captain Kim Tae-ho watched the enemy flagship die and felt no joy, only grim satisfaction. Justice had been served for all the human worlds that had burned. The Empire's greatest symbol of power was gone, and their fleet was surrendering all Empire vessels. This is Captain Kim Tae-ho of Earth, he broadcast across all frequencies. Your flagship is destroyed, your admiral is dead, and your fleet is broken. Surrender now, and you will be treated with honor. Continue fighting and join your leader in death. Hundreds of alien voices responded with surrender messages. The proud Empire fleet that had never been defeated was giving up to 43 humans who had refused to quit. The impossible had become reality through human determination, but the Earth's fury was dying too. The Omega Protocol had pushed their reactor beyond all limits, and it was about to explode. The crew had maybe minutes to live, but they had struck a blow that would echo through history. The greatest battle in human history was ending in victory, but at a price that seemed almost too high to pay. The stars watched silently as heroes prepared to die. Captain Kim Tae-ho knew the moment had come for their final gamble. The Empire fleet was confused and scattered, but they still had thousands of ships. The time had arrived to show the galaxy what humans could do when everything depended on their courage. Engineer Lee Min-ho appeared on the bridge, his face serious but determined. Captain, I request permission to activate the Omega Protocol, he said quietly. The bridge crew fell silent because they all knew what those words meant. The Omega Protocol was their most dangerous modification. It would push the ship's reactor beyond every safety limit, giving them power levels that could tear the vessel apart, but it would also give them enough energy to punch through any defense in the galaxy. Kim Tejo looked at each member of his crew and saw the same determination in every face. They had come this far against impossible odds, and they were ready to risk everything for victory. "Permission granted," he said. "Activate the Omega Protocol, Lee." Minho rushed back to engineering where his team was waiting. They had prepared for this moment for months, knowing it might be their last act. The chief engineer placed his hand on the reactor controls and pushed them past every red line throughout. The Earth's Fury systems began glowing with dangerous levels of energy. The hull started vibrating as power coursed through circuits never meant to handle such loads. Warning alarms sounded, but the crew ignored them. They were beyond the point of caution. Lieutenant Park So-young watched her tactical displays light up like fireworks as their weapons charged to impossible levels. "All weapons showing maximum power, Captain. We have enough energy to crack a moon, but the reactor will only hold for 10 minutes. 10 minutes was enough time to change history. The Earth's Fury shot forward like a comet, accelerating to speeds that should have torn the ship apart. Chief Pilot Bae Seung-min held the controls steady as space blurred around them. The Empire fleet tried to react, but the human ship was moving too fast to track. Admiral Crix ordered all vessels to concentrate fire on the approaching threat, but their weapons could not hit something that moved like lightning through their formation's weapons. Officer Jang Do-hyun unleashed the full power of their modified plasma cannons. Empire ships simply vanished as the energy beams struck them. The weapons were firing with enough power to destroy asteroids, and no alien vessel could survive the assault navigation. Officer Yoon Ji-woo guided them through the enemy formations like a dancer moving through raindrops. The Earth's Fury avoided incoming fire by milliseconds as it carved a path of destruction toward the Empire flagship. The Dominion waited ahead. Like a metal mountain, communications officer Choi Hae-jin monitored enemy transmissions and heard something she had never expected. Fear was spreading through the Empire fleet. Captains were reporting that the human ship had become unstoppable. Their perfect confidence was cracking. Dr. Song Yoon-soo marveled at her crew's performance. The Omega Protocol was pushing their bodies to the limit, but instead of failing, they were getting stronger. Humans did not just survive extreme conditions, they thrived. On the more Empire ships died as the Earth's Fury approached its target. The alien vessels were heavily armed and well protected, but nothing could stand against the fury of human determination. Their weapons turned proud warships into clouds of glowing debris. Science officer Han Yu-jin watched the Empire fleet's formation completely collapse as panic took hold. Some ships were trying to retreat while others attempted to form defensive lines. The perfect military machine had become a confused mob running from one small vessel. Admiral Crix felt terror creeping into his heart as he watched the human ship approach. His flagship was the most powerful vessel ever built by the Empire. It carried enough weapons to destroy entire cities, and its shields could stop planet-killing asteroids, but the approaching human ship was blazing with energy levels that his sensors could not measure. The small vessel had somehow become more powerful than anything in his fleet. The impossible was happening again, and this time it was aimed directly at him. The Dominion turned all its massive weapons toward the Earth's Fury and opened fire. The space between the ships filled with deadly energy as the flagship unleashed everything it had. The barrage was powerful enough to vaporize mountains. Chief Pilot Bae Seung-min dove and rolled the ship through the incoming fire like a leaf dancing in a hurricane. The energy bolts missed by tiny margins as the human vessel continued its deadly approach. Nothing could stop them now. Lee Min-ho's voice echoed through the ship from the engine room. Reactor at critical levels, Captain. We have maybe 2 minutes before everything overloads. His words carried no fear, only pride in what they had accomplished. The Earth's Fury closed the final distance to the Empire flagship as every weapon on both ships prepared to fire. The moment that would decide the fate of the galaxy had arrived. 2 minutes would determine whether humans lived free or died as slaves. Admiral Crix stood on the bridge of his flagship staring at reports that made no sense. His tactical officers kept showing him the same impossible data. One human ship had destroyed 250 of his best fighters without taking any damage. The numbers had to be wrong. Check the sensors again. He ordered his bridge crew. There must be an error. No single vessel can defeat entire squadrons. The officers ran their diagnostics, but the results never changed. The human ship had done The impossible on other Empire vessels. Throughout the massive fleet, similar scenes played out. Captains and admirals read battle reports with growing disbelief. Some thought their equipment had failed, others wondered if the humans had secret allies helping them. None could accept the truth of Earth's fury moved through space like a predator hunting its prey. Captain Kim Tae-ho studied the enemy formations on his tactical display. The Empire ships were massive and powerful, but they moved in predictable patterns. Their size made them slow, and their tactics made them vulnerable. Science officer Han Yujin worked at her station analyzing the enemy fleet's communication patterns. She had been listening to their radio chatter for hours and discovered something important. The Empire ships were too dependent on orders from their commanders. Captain, she called out, I found their weakness. The Empire fleet operates like a machine. Each ship waits for orders before acting. If we can disrupt their command structure, the whole fleet will fall apart. Kim Tae-ho nodded as he understood the implications. The aliens had built a perfect military system, but perfection could be a weakness when everything depended on central control. The loss of leaders would cause chaos. Target their command ships, he ordered. We are not just fighting a battle, we are cutting the head off a snake. Let them see what happens when humans refuse to follow their rules. Lieutenant Park So-young identified the priority targets on her display. The Empire fleet had dozens of command vessels scattered throughout their formation. Each one controlled a section of ships. If enough commanders died, the fleet would lose coordination. Weapons officer Jang Do-hyun charged the plasma cannons for another attack run. The modified weapons were ready to unleash destruction on the alien commanders. The human ship began moving toward the nearest command vessel like death approaching through the stars. Admiral Crix realized what the humans were planning and felt fear for the first time in decades. All ships protect the command vessels, he ordered into his communicator. Do not let that ship reach our commanders. But the Earth's fury was already moving too fast to stop. Chief Pilot Bae Seung-min pushed the engines beyond their limits as the ship accelerated toward its target. Empire vessels tried to intercept, but the human ship was too quick and too unpredictable. The first command ship died in a burst of plasma fire that lit up the darkness. Immediately, the ships under its control began moving randomly without coordination. The perfect formation started to develop gaps as confused vessels struggled to maintain position. Han Yujin monitored the enemy communications as panic spread through their ranks. Captains were asking for orders that never came. Squadrons broke formation as they tried to protect themselves. The machine was starting to break down. Another command ship exploded as the Earth's fury continued its deadly mission. More sections of the Empire fleet lost coordination. The aliens had built their tactics around overwhelming force and perfect organization. Without both advantages, they became vulnerable. Navigation officer Yoon Ji-woo plotted courses between enemy ships that should have been impossible. The human vessel moved through gaps that closed seconds after they passed. The Empire gunners could not track something that moved like liquid mercury through their formations. Dr. Song Yoon-soo watched her crew perform feats that amazed her. The extreme forces should have crushed them, but humans were built for survival. Their ancestors had lived through ice ages and disasters by refusing to give up when things looked hopeless. The battle was becoming something new and terrible. The Empire had expected to destroy one small ship with overwhelming firepower. Instead, they were watching their perfect fleet fall apart under attacks they could not predict or counter. More command ships died as the Earth's fury hunted through their formations. Each loss created wider areas of confusion. The fleet that had conquered star systems was being torn apart by 43 humans who refused to accept defeat. Communications officer Choi Hai-jin heard desperation in the enemy transmissions. Some Empire captains were requesting permission to retreat. Others were calling for reinforcements that would never come. The pride of their military was crumbling. Engineer Lee Min-ho reported from the engine room that all systems were still working perfectly despite the impossible stress. The human modifications had not just improved their technology, they had made it unbreakable. The ship was performing miracles of engineering. Admiral Crix felt his perfect world collapsing around him. His entire career had been built on the idea that superior numbers and technology guaranteed victory. But the humans were proving that courage and creativity could overcome any advantage. He watched Another command ship died in plasma fire, and knew that his fleet was doomed. The humans had found the one weakness in his perfect system. They had turned his strength into vulnerability by targeting the very thing that made his fleet so powerful. The Earth's fury was not just winning a battle, it was rewriting the rules of warfare. The Empire's greatest fleet was learning that humans did not fight like other species. They fought like the universe itself was their weapon. The first wave of Empire fighter ships rushed toward the Earth's fury like angry metal wasps. The small craft moved in perfect formation just as their training taught them. They expected to overwhelm the human ship with numbers and speed. Admiral Crix had used this tactic to destroy thousands of enemy vessels. Weapons Officer Zhang Duhaiyan watched the fighters approach on his targeting screen. His finger hovered over the firing controls as he counted the enemy ships. 50 fighters in the first wave, with more coming behind them. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a building, but together they could tear apart mountains' weight. For Captain Kim Tae-ho said calmly. He stood behind Zhang Duhaiyan watching the tactical display. The enemy fighters were getting closer and closer, but the captain did not give the order to fire. The crew trusted him completely, even when death was racing toward them. The Empire pilots felt confident as they closed the distance. No single ship could stand against so many attackers. They had done this dance of destruction countless times before. Each pilot thought about the medals they would receive for destroying the last human vessel. When the fighters were almost close enough to touch the Earth's fury, Captain Kim Tae-ho finally spoke. "Fire all weapons," he commanded. Zhang Duhaiyan pressed the firing controls and the ship's modified plasma cannons came alive. The weapons unleashed streams of pure energy that cut through space like swords of light. The Empire fighters had no time to dodge or escape. The beams hit them and turned metal into glowing vapor. 50 enemy fighters became clouds of burning debris in less than 10 seconds. The plasma cannons were firing with 3 times more power than they were designed for. Lee Min-ho's modifications had turned ordinary weapons into instruments of destruction that the Empire had never seen. Admiral Crix stared at his tactical display in shock. His sensors told him that 50 fighters had just died, but his mind refused to believe it. No ship that small should have such powerful weapons. The humans had done something impossible, and his perfect attack had failed on the Empire flagship. Confusion spread among the bridge crew. They had expected to watch the human ship die under the fighter attack. Instead, their own forces had been destroyed without landing a single hit. The weapons readings from the human vessel were beyond anything in their databases. Send in the heavy fighters. Admiral Crix ordered, his voice tight with anger. These humans have tricks, but numbers will win. Deploy 200 fighters and overwhelm their defenses. Lieutenant Park So-young monitored the enemy response from her station. "Captain, they are sending more fighters, 2 full squadrons approaching from multiple directions." She adjusted her sensors to track all the incoming threats. Chief Pilot Bae So-min felt the ship respond to his controls like a living thing. The modifications had not just improved their weapons, but their engines too. The Earth's fury could move faster and turn quicker than any ship its size had a right to. The laws of physics seemed to bend around human determination here. "They come again," Bae So-min announced as 200 enemy fighters swarmed toward them from all sides. This time the Empire pilots were more careful. They spread out and approached from different angles to avoid the fate of their comrades' navigation. Officer Yoon Ji-woo calculated attack vectors in her head while her fingers danced over the controls. The Earth's fury began to move in ways that defied every rule of space combat. The ship spun and rolled like a dancer, avoiding the enemy weapons' fire. The Empire fighters opened fire with energy bolts that could punch through armor plating, but their target was no longer where they aimed. Bae So-min piloted the ship through the deadly crossfire like he was born in space. The human vessel twisted and turned between the attacks. Zhang Duhaiyan fired the plasma cannons again and again. Each shot destroyed an enemy fighter in a flash of light. The modified weapons never overheated or failed. They just kept firing with impossible power. Lee Min-ho's engineering team had created weapons that broke every known rule. More fighters died as the Earth's fury danced through their formations. The Empire pilots had trained for years to fight in coordinated groups, but the human ship fought like a wild animal, unpredictable and deadly. Their perfect tactics meant nothing against human creativity. Down in the engine room, Lee Min-ho watched his instruments with growing excitement. The reactor was producing power levels that should have been impossible. The human modifications were working exactly as planned. While aliens followed safety rules, humans broke them to achieve victory. The ship's hull vibrated with energy as systems pushed beyond their limits. But instead of failing, everything worked better than before. Human engineers had learned to make technology exceed its design by understanding that limits were meant to be overcome. Dr. Song Yun-soo monitored the crew's vital signs from the medical bay. The extreme maneuvers should have knocked them unconscious from the forces involved, but humans had evolved on a world with strong gravity and constant danger. Their bodies could handle stress that would kill most aliens. Communications Officer Choi Hyjin intercepted enemy transmissions as the battle raged. The Empire pilots were panicking as their formations fell apart. They had never faced an enemy that fought like the human ship. Their training had not prepared them for this kind of warfare. 150 Empire fighters became space debris as the Earth's fury continued its deadly dance. Only 50 survived the encounter, and they were retreating in fear. Admiral Crix watched his elite squadrons run from a single enemy vessel. Impossible, the Admiral whispered as he stared at his tactical display. The humans had destroyed 200 fighters without taking a single hit in return. His perfect formations had been torn apart by weapons that should not exist on such a small ship. Captain Kim Tae-ho smiled as he watched the surviving fighters flee. That was just the beginning, he told his crew. Now they know we are not helpless prey. They will send bigger ships, but we are ready for them. The first phase of the battle was over, and the Earth's fury had won against impossible odds, but Admiral Crix had thousands more ships waiting, and his anger was growing. The real fight was about to begin. Captain Kim Tae-ho looked out at the dark space filled with enemy ships. His hands were steady on the control panel, but his heart was beating fast. The bridge of the Earth's fury felt smaller today, with death waiting outside. Every screen showed the same terrible truth. 3,000 alien warships surrounded his lonely vessel. The captain was only 35 years old, but the war had aged him. His black hair had gray streaks now, and his eyes held the weight of watching friends die. He had commanded this ship for 2 years, since the Empire started destroying human worlds one by one. Earth's colonies had fallen, and now only his crew remained to fight. Lieutenant Park So-young sat at her station reading the enemy numbers. Her fingers moved quickly over the displays as she counted ships. The numbers kept growing as more Empire vessels dropped out of hyperspace. Her voice was calm when she spoke, but Kim Tae-ho could hear the fear underneath. So many ships. Captain, the main fleet has over 2,000 vessels. Their flagship, the Dominion, is massive. It must be 20 kilometers long. Our sensors show it has enough firepower to destroy a moon. Kim Tae-ho nodded slowly. He had seen the Empire's power before when they attacked the human colony on New Sol. The aliens had used that same flagship. The planet had burned for 3 days before the fires finally died. Nothing lived there now except ash and radiation. The Empire called themselves the rulers of the galaxy. They had conquered 500 different species in the last 1,000 years. Their technology was advanced, and their armies were endless. Most alien races surrendered without fighting because resistance seemed impossible, but humans were different. Engineer Lee Min-ho climbed onto the bridge from the lower decks. His uniform was dirty with oil and his face was covered in sweat. He had been working on the ship's engines for 18 hours straight, trying to give them every advantage possible. His team had made changes to the reactor that the Empire would never expect. Captain, the modifications are complete, he said with pride in his voice. We pushed the power output beyond anything the designers intended. The aliens think they know what our ship can do, but they are wrong. We have surprises they cannot imagine. Kim Tae-ho smiled at his chief engineer. Lee Min-ho was brilliant at finding new ways to make old technology work better. He had studied Empire technology for years and learned their weaknesses. While the aliens followed strict rules, humans were creative. They could make impossible things happen. The Empire ships moved closer in perfect formation. Their hulls were dark metal that reflected no light. Each vessel was larger than the Earth's fury and carried enough weapons to level cities. The aliens had never lost a major battle because they always brought overwhelming force navigation. Officer Yoon Ji-woo watched the enemy movements on her screens. The Empire fleet was positioning itself to attack from all directions. They wanted to make sure the human ship could not escape. Their formation was flawless, like a dance of death in the darkness of space. Admiral Crix commands their fleet, she reported to the captain. He has destroyed 47 star systems and enslaved 200 species. He has never been defeated in battle. The Empire considers him their greatest military leader. Kim Tae-ho had heard of Admiral Crix before. The alien commander was famous throughout the galaxy for his cruelty. He did not just defeat enemies, he made examples of them. Entire worlds had been turned into monuments to his power, with billions of skeletons left as warnings. Communications officer Choi Hai-jin suddenly looked up from her station. Captain, incoming transmission from the Empire flagship. Admiral Crix wants to speak with you directly. She adjusted her headset and waited for orders. Put him through. Kim Tae-ho said he wanted to see the face of the alien who had burned so many human worlds. The main screen flickered and then showed the bridge of the Dominion. Admiral Crix stood in the center, surrounded by his officers. The alien was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. His eyes were black and showed no emotion when he looked at humans. He wore a uniform covered in medals from his many victories. Each piece of metal represented a world he had conquered or a species he had destroyed. Human, Captain Crix said in perfect English, his voice cold as space. I'm Admiral Crix of the Galactic Empire. Your species has caused much trouble, but today that ends. You have one chance to surrender and die quickly. Refuse, and I will make your death last for days. Kim Tae-ho stood up straight and looked directly at the alien commander. He thought about all the human worlds that had been destroyed, all the families torn apart, all the children who would never grow up because of this creature standing before him. Admiral Crix, he said, his voice steady and strong. I am Captain Kim Tae-ho of Earth. We did not start this war, but we will finish it. You want our surrender? Here is my answer. The captain made a gesture that humans had used for thousands of years when facing bullies and tyrants. He held up his middle finger and smiled. Come and take it, he said. The alien admiral's face showed surprise for just a moment. Then his expression turned to rage. No species had ever insulted him like this. He had expected the human to beg for mercy or try to bargain for time. Instead, this small creature was showing defiance. You will regret those words. Admiral Crix said, all Empire ships prepare for attack. Show these humans what happens to those who defy the Empire. The transmission ended, and the bridge fell silent. For a moment, the crew of the Earth's Fury knew what was coming. They were about to face the most powerful fleet in the galaxy, with only their courage and determination to protect them. Medical officer Dr. Song Yoon-soo checked her equipment in the medical bay. She knew there would be injuries. Soon the ship would take damage and her crewmates would need her help. She had been a doctor for 10 years, but nothing had prepared her for a battle like this. Chief pilot Bae Seung-min ran his hands over the flight controls. He had learned to fly on Earth, where the gravity was strong and the weather was dangerous. Those skills would be tested today as he tried to keep their ship alive against impossible odds. Weapons officer Jang Do-hyun powered up the ship's guns. The modifications Lee Min-ho had made would give them more firepower than any ship their size had ever carried, but would it be enough against 3,000 enemy vessels? He would find out soon. Kim Tae-ho looked around at his crew. These 43 humans were all that stood between the Empire and total victory. They were young and scared, but they were also determined. Their species had not survived on a dangerous world for millions of years by giving up when things looked bad. Today we make history, he told them. The Empire thinks humans are weak because we come from one small planet. They have never seen what we can do when we fight for everything we love. Today we show them that Earth's children do not surrender. The enemy fleet began moving forward like a wall of death approaching through space. Every human on the ship felt the weight of the moment. They were probably going to die, but they would make their deaths count. Outside the Earth's Fury, the stars watched silently as the greatest battle in human history was about to begin.